Hello, everyone, and welcome back to For Fox's Sake. This is the Women's Football Show. We're here with some very fancy new graphics, courtesy of Pete Selby. I'm delighted to be joined today by Steph Powell. Steph is the FA National Development Manager for Volunteering, I believe. Is that right, Steph?
That is right, yeah.
Brilliant. And you've got several years of experience working with county FAs and in education, including working on the Women's Leadership Programme. Which is quite familiar to me, so we'll be talking about that later. And you also have some experience playing in the National League setup as well.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me. No, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it's a bit of a different perspective for you, but I'm looking forward to talking all things women's football, I suppose.
Yeah, no, we love having a real wide variety of guests on our show, and we'll get stuck into all the fantastic work you do in your career a little bit later on. But firstly, let's talk Manchester City. Obviously, you're a Man City fan, Steph, and you were at the game. Just give us a kind of overview from your perspective of the game, your kind of positives and negatives, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how dismal of a day it was for Leicester.
I know. Sorry, an imposter within the ranks today, but I was at the game on Friday. I always kind of felt that it was going to be a difficult day for Leicester, not least because of the away form, but straight off the back of City's defeat to Arsenal, I thought was probably the worst time for them to play City, largely because they'll have been looking to bounce back. They'll have been looking to prove a point. I always thought it was going to be quite dangerous for Leicester. Having said that, a really kind of successful January, and I'm a cynical City fan. I've been there and seen the rubbish bits as well. So there was part of me that thought if Leicester played well, they might cause an upset. But I mean, generally speaking, for the first 15 minutes or so, Leicester were really quite stoic, well structured, looked like they might make it difficult for us, but City had to be really patient, and as soon as they got through, kind of once or twice, Miedema had a few early chances, and it felt after kind of 20 minutes just before the first goal that the writing was on the wall already, really. I suppose from then it was one-way traffic, despite Leicester's early chances giving us a bit of a scare.
Oh, I mean, they started so brightly. There was that Lehmann chance that came agonisingly close, bounced off the post, and then after the first two goals, I think Shannon O'Brien hit the crossbar, and I was really excited because I thought, right, well, we're in the mix here. We've had a bit of a lapse in concentration maybe for the last 10 minutes, but you can bring back the form from the first 15, and it was just, it didn't turn out like that, did it? I think let's talk a little bit about Lauren Hemp, because I think she was the key reason in the first half that City capitalised so well. We just could not contain her down that left-hand side, could we?
No, Hemp had a fantastic game. I think the way Leicester set up, Sarah Malin was playing really high. Ash Neville the same, but they're much like Casper I and Carolyn were much quieter on the other side. But Hemp just felt like she was running the show. But there was so much strength across City's midfield, and I know Leicester were missing players in the midfield as well. But kind of Sam Coffey and Yui Hasegawa had brilliant starts to the game as well, and were controlling it from the middle. And like there was so much action down this side, because obviously Lehman, as you say, got some early chances as well, and some success down there. You thought it was going to be a really kind of dynamic and quick game, particularly down the wings. But in the end, Hem got the upper hand there, I think.
Yeah, I think it was lost in that midfield battle. But also a good comment here from Matt Middleton. Hemp was outstanding. Not sure it helps Leicester continuously changing the back four. Really missed Sam too. Sam Tierney, suspended from receiving too many yellow cards for challenges that I don't think sometimes you should have received a yellow card for, but such is the way when you're such a strong tackler. I totally agree, Matt. I think the constant changing of the centre-backs, the formation, it's difficult. And I think, Van Egmond and McLaughlin both coming in, having only been appearing on the bench for the past 2 games, probably not as settled in the midfield. And, a team like Manchester City are going to exploit you, particularly in the transition. So, just one-way traffic. And you said Carolyn was kept quiet, but she was not quiet in that second half. I mean, that was a stunner.
Yeah, it was a rocket, wasn't it? She's had, since she's come back and been a bit more of a mainstay in the team since she's been back from injury, she's been, I was going to say game changer for us, but it was going pretty well anyway. I mean, our attack compared to anyone else looks really frightening, doesn't it? And, Leicester kind of physically at centre half looked as, imposing, but actually, like, when the ball went in, Bunny Shaw and Miedema were just winning every challenge every time. And like you say, Carolyn came into it a bit more in the second half, and whilst it was less of a juggernaut, she really pulled some special out, didn't she?
Yeah, it was the breaking of a dam, I think, after that second Miedema goal when Man City went 3-0 up. They just seemed so much taller, Miedema and Shaw, than the centre backs. There's only so much that Chantal Swaby can grow, I guess. If she's trying to contain 2 very tall, excellent strikers of the ball, I think that's quite a hard ask of her. I think positionally, Leicester did well to stay on their players, but then I think once City start capitalising, they lost that physicality, and they were not winning the duels. They weren't winning the second balls. Their touches were off. Their passes weren't strong enough or overhit, and I just think that was it. Man City were through, and I suppose, as a WSL fan, you'll have seen the highlights from other games, but Leicester have got away with it sometimes, I think, against other teams that haven't been as clear-cut with their chances, haven't been so good at finishing. And admittedly, Leicester have had a really good season, I suppose, defensively, but they do really lack that finishing touch up front. We've talked about it so much on this podcast, but you can see where the likes of Lehman and Mouchon added, in the first 20 minutes, but just could not get the ball in the back of the net. Could we?
Yeah, and you can see why defensively they've had success throughout the season. I know there's been kind of goalkeeper change and significant changes in the back four, but they looked well organised and well structured, and I thought that we might kind of have to be really patient and struggle a little bit to get through. But I mean, City are used to playing against that low block, aren't they? And teams trying to catch them onto the break. So I don't know. I'm no expert. I'm no football manager, but they struggled when Arsenal brought the game to them. So, and I'm not saying a team like Leicester should take that approach, but that's what City have struggled with. And when Mouchon got the ball, again, I'm a cynical City fan, but part of me was nervous at times, particularly like towards the end of the second half when City was, perhaps getting a little bit complacent, a little bit lazy, like, again, really physically imposing, and definitely had something like, and was, looking to capitalise on weaknesses that they clearly spotted before the game. So I think that there are definitely positives to take from that. And, you know, on a different day, if you convert an early chance or, you know, City make a mistake at the back before you get that third goal, then it's a different outcome, isn't it?
Yeah, it's done. They'll have to dust themselves off. Admittedly, we were talking before the show. One of the only positives is Leicester still have a game in hand over their relegation rivals, which are currently Liverpool and Aston Villa. I think Everton sit 7 points above Leicester, so they're a little bit more out of reach. But nonetheless, I guess that's one positive is we're still in with a shot. But I totally agree with you. I think Mouchon, I've been saying it's great to have her back, and I've been saying she should start. He chose to start Shannon O'Brien over Hannah Kane, Rick Passmore, which was interesting from my point of view. I think Shannon O'Brien's been a bit too inconsistent, but she does create. So I guess that's maybe what Passmore was thinking. But yeah, overall, I suppose as a Man City fan, you'll be happy with that bounce back from the Arsenal defeat. But I think Leicester just need to take the next month to collect themselves and try and hit Liverpool where it hurts. So let's move on to a bit about you, Steph. As we do in the Women's Football Show, we like to quiz our guests, interview them on their career highlights. And amazingly, you've actually got a lot of insight into the National League setup, having played there, but also working there in your current role in the FA. So you don't have to spend too long, but I think the viewers would love to know a little bit about your playing career, how much the National League helped you develop as a person, but also professionally. And yeah, just some career highlights from your days in the National League.
Yeah, wow. I've probably played, albeit to no sort of level that we're talking about here, coming up for 2 decades, which maybe shows age a little bit. And whilst I've stopped now to focus a bit more on the FA role, been really fortunate to play in some fantastic teams and to have some really supportive people around me as I've done that. You know, I played when I was young, when then women's football wasn't anywhere near as prominent as it is now, and ended up playing in teams across the women's football pyramid at various different levels, and with some fantastic players, of which Olivia Clark is one. So as we were saying kind of before we came on, she I've definitely got a soft spot for Leicester, and was conflicted as she started making a few good saves at the start of the game on Friday. But yeah, it's so I suppose there's a couple of levels of county local league football across the landscape. Then it comes into a bit more kind of national and regional league football before it feeds into the WSL2 and then the WSL. I think what we're seeing is a fantastic growth at football at a local level at the moment. Obviously excellent exposure across the WSL and more investment and hopefully progression as the league continues to develop. But a real focus nationally on resource needs to be committed to that middle bit, the women's pyramid bit, because it won't just kind of look after itself as the game grows at either side. So yeah, it's been fantastic to play, to fulfill kind of a number of roles across the game, but really exciting time, I think, both in the professional game and general development of women's football.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that, because I think there's always a lot of talk particularly from the top about, you know, building grassroots football, and then also investing in things like the WSL, but the middle gets neglected a little bit, like the tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 of the national leagues, and then, like you say, the county, the regional teams. So as much as we want to get lots of young girls playing football, and particularly in school and in their teenage years, it's important to keep growing that middle section, isn't it? What are the sort of current initiatives helping to promote that, or the initiatives that you work with, particularly in your role, more catered towards volunteering? How important are the volunteers for that sort of middle section of the football tiers?
Yeah, pivotal. I mean, like you say, that football on a local level, when it starts to get more exposure and England win the Euros, naturally your entry level point is that grassroots level. The investment inevitably comes into the top level of the game, and that middle bit, like you say, quite rightly, has the potential to be forgotten. But nationally, there's like some support. Kind of, we govern the league internally at the FA, which allows us to have a certain level of control over investment and decisions that are made for the greater good of the game. We'll see decisions made around FA Cup prize money that filters down into the earlier rounds, that benefit the long-term development of those clubs. And that's just kind of one of a few things that are in place. We have a set of minimum standards across clubs at that level now, which ensures that players are getting the right level of support for their own development, that they're investing in kind of fan structures and staffing structures at the club, and so on. So plenty of support going into that level of the game. And in terms of volunteers, for those people that aren't close to the game, I suppose everything from the professional game down is almost entirely run by volunteers in the game. We've got, it's the largest volunteer network outside of the NHS in this country, is grassroots football. So I guess our main work at the moment is to continue to grow that network as participation grows across the sport. But a huge part of that is diversifying the network as well. So as we get more women and girls playing the game, what we want to see is more female volunteers coming in to support that, because naturally then you get the visual role models. We want women making decisions for females playing the game. So because, I suppose there's a greater understanding of what they want the game to look like, and so on. So some really targeted work going into to make sure that happens, because of the growth that we're seeing in players across the game. We're not necessarily seeing reflected in off-pitch roles and coaching and refereeing roles, but yeah, hopefully we'll start to see that change.
Yeah, we've had a great comment in here from Andy, who worked in Tier 3 for over 6 years. Volunteers were invaluable. I'd argue it was better run under us and them than under the main clubs that came back in and took over. But I mean, it just goes to show, it's what you're saying, isn't it? The volunteers have that insight. They know what's needed from the game. They know what's needed for the players, but also for the wider infrastructure. So no, that's awesome to hear. And volunteers are definitely the backbone of university sport, which is kind of, I guess, the more grassroots regional level that I'm currently involved in. I actually play rugby at the moment. I've had a break from football, but I was really lucky to witness the University of Nottingham's women's football team make it to the first round proper of the FA Cup this year. So that was a real highlight. But it just goes to show that growth and development can come from all areas of women's football. And that volunteers are absolutely invaluable. I did not know that they were the biggest network outside the NHS. That's my fun fact of the day. But yeah, what has been a bit of a career highlight for you, Steph? What sort of initiatives have you kind of spearheaded, or what has your career taught you in terms of I guess the importance of developing the game regionally?
I mean, to your point on rugby as well, we do quite a bit of work with the RFU, and the network's the same, right? We've got so much to learn from each other. Rugby are kind of far less resourced than kind of what we are, so they have to be more creative in their attempts to get more volunteers in. So we're definitely doing a lot of learning from rugby, although you've gone over to the dark side. But in terms of, career highlights for me, and look, working for the FA, if you'd have told me however many years ago, if you'd have told me 5 years ago that I'd be working for the national governing body, and your office would be at Wembley Stadium, I wouldn't have believed the word you were saying. And so it's not lost on me how fortunate how kind of, although worked hard to get into those spaces, but how much weight that holds, an opportunity that we've got to make a difference. And had some incredible opportunities as part of that to develop programs that have worked with the Lionesses on the growth of the game, and great marketing campaigns to get more females into the game fronted by our Lionesses. But for me, it's the little stories, it's the local stories, like got volunteers on that have been in Tier 6, and seeing the difference that it makes to people's lives at that level is really special for me. When I was working in local football development, we were developing sessions with women that never thought football were for them. They were kind of a missed generation of people that didn't get to play when football was banned, and they've had an opportunity to start playing walking football for the first time, and worked with a lady who stood in goal for 10 minutes at a time and ended up losing 4 stone and changing her life, and the way that she was able to interact with her children and her family, and the difference that made to her. It's the small stories for me that, it's great to be involved on a national level and to impact more people, but it's important to bring yourself back and remind yourself why you do what you do sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's so touching. I love hearing stories like that. It's so important to give them a spotlight. Talk to me a little bit about your work in education, particularly the women's leadership program, Steph. What is that, and how can people get involved?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, education is a great tool for us to utilise in sport, because the very, very vast majority of young people go through it. So, seeing a focus on getting more women and girls, getting more girls playing football in schools, because all of them have to do PE. And so, if we can introduce them and improve that transition rate to the community, it's a great opportunity. We see, particularly in volunteering, working in college spaces and university spaces as a opportunity, as people are looking to progress their careers, to use volunteering as the first step to do that. One of the interventions that I've worked on with a number of different hats on, really, is kind of a facilitator on the programme, and now as kind of the governing body support on it, is the Women's Leadership Programme. And that's a programme for upwards of 22 women in the university space each year, supported by Women in Football. If you're not a member of Women in Football and you are a woman working in the football or volunteering in the football space, then get to know them. They're fantastic. And they're delivering a year-long programme which encompasses kind of online and residentials for young females to focus on their own personal and professional development, be exposed to greater football networks and opportunities in the game, to hopefully give them a bit of a leg up, if you like, to be the future workforce of the game. And that's a lot of my kind of priority at the moment, looking at those off-pitch roles and how can we get greater representation. So yeah, it's a good tool for us, and we only hope that programme will get even bigger as we move forward.
Yeah, no, it sounds amazing. I'm lucky that, a couple of my friends have either been through the programme or currently going through it, and they wax lyrical about how awesome it is. So if anyone watching is in university and wants to get involved, do look it up. Likewise, if you want to tell your daughters, cousins, family members about it, please do. And follow Women in Football as well. Good shout out for that. No, that's awesome. It just goes to show how important it is to have representation at all levels, and stuff like the Women in Leadership Programme really adds to that. And yeah, it's nice to know that people I know are going to make a difference in the football world and are going to be visible and making change in that respect. So thank you so much for your insight, Steph. That's really awesome to hear. So sort of circling back to Leicester, we're in a bit of a perilous position, as I put it on my recent article. Head on over to www.forfoxsake.news to read it, subscribe for the price of a pint a month. Is we're in a perilous position. We're in the relegation zone. We're currently sitting 12th, but we do have a game in hand. We obviously have a fixture coming up against Liverpool and then closely followed by Aston Villa. What do you think Leicester need to do to get results from that, Steph? Where do you think they need to really put their eggs in? Which basket?
It's really difficult. It's hard to know whether that long break that they've got now is a positive or not, because do you go for that, the quick bounce back off the back of what was a good performance against United before they played City, or could they do with that break? A lot of other teams will have more players going off on international than potentially Leicester will. But Liverpool's a difficult one, isn't it? Because they've been so inconsistent. A fantastic result against Aston Villa, who albeit aren't having a good time of it at the moment, and you wouldn't expect them to get a result against Chelsea, but their results throughout the season have been super inconsistent. Aston Villa, and who knows what teams are going to come back from that break, like whether their January signings are going to have had time to gel, or that you'll benefit from teams that are a bit that need to, like you say, dust themselves off a bit after the break. So it's hard to know what's going to come, of course, but Aston Villa, if they stay kind of as they are in the same vein as the last few weeks, you might be catching them at a good time as well. I think your guy at the top, was it Matt? He said, a bit of consistency in that team will hopefully come as you get your midfielders back into play, start to find a bit of continuity in that defensive line now. January, and the transfer window's been and gone. And with the excitement going forward with Lehman and Mouchon, I think, against the team that's not top of the league and by far and away, albeit with a bit of bias, the best team this year, I'd be surprised if they didn't survive, honestly. I don't I don't want to fill anyone with false hope and then get atted on the last day of the season when there's a relegation playoff. But I would be really surprised if Leicester didn't get a couple of results. But the next few games are super important, aren't they?
They are, and anyone who's been watching the episodes thus far knows how positive I am, and I try to keep it positive with my score predictions, even if they are completely nonsensical. But having said that, I totally agree with you. Villa also lost 6-1 to Manchester City in December. So I don't think a 6-0 loss, like you say, against the best team this season is that bad of a result.
It's difficult
Trying to keep positive.
Do you come into that game if you're Rick Passmore, and do you say, obviously he's probably not saying this to his players, but do we play for damage limitation here and try and keep goal difference down? But not even that paid off, did it?
No, it didn't. I think that was probably the original plan, and had they capitalised on the first couple of chances they had in the opening 35 minutes, I think it would have been a different story. I think they would have taken confidence from those goals and then perhaps woken up a bit more. But once you go 4-0 down, it's just like psychologically, and you've still got a whole other half to play. It's so hard to get yourself back on track. I said in my article that at least it was only 2 goals conceded in the second half, which I guess they can, and one of them was an absolute worldie. So,
I did have half a worry when Rachel Williams came on. I thought, if there's anyone
that can score, it's Rachel Williams in the.
And if there's anyone that's going to come back to City, to taunt us, it's going to be Rachel Williams. But not to be.
No, she couldn't pull the magic out the hat, could she? But I actually think it's a good thing they have a month, because Liverpool are on a good run of form, and I think losing to Liverpool would have just been the nail in the coffin in terms of confidence throughout the season. I think that a whole month. It allows for some perhaps, injuries to be resolved, with the likes of our new signing, Emma. But yeah, I don't think I would have wanted to play Liverpool this week, particularly on their run of form. They beat Aston Villa 4-1. So that says a lot to me. So I think maybe a month might be the right thing for Leicester. Matt's just come back. What's Matt saying? Been impressed with the likes of Neville and Williams coming in with a lot of leadership qualities on the pitch. They've been really honest after games about what the team needs to work on. I agree. I don't think Leicester are oblivious to their faults, oblivious to their weaknesses. I think they know exactly what it is. It's just the case of you're playing a team of an exceptionally high caliber, and sometimes you just can't compete with that, isn't it? Would you agree with Matt?
Yeah, look, 2 weeks before we saw them turn Chelsea over, who, are still doing pretty well in the Champions League. So, yeah, I'd agree with Matt. I was surprised, actually, that to see Neville with the armband so early on in her Leicester career. But, nicely, pleasantly surprised. I mean, like you say, it must mean that the team's gelling really well and settling really well. And I hope that is that's a good omen for things to come.
Yeah, I mean, Neville was annoying at Spurs. She was always that one player that you just thought, oh gosh, how is she still going? How is she still tackling? But having her on this Leicester team has completely added a different dimension. I think her balls into the box, her defensive qualities, her leadership attributes have been phenomenal and such a great addition. And I totally agree. Rachel Williams as well. I mean, she's 39 years old. She has so much experience. And I think you can see what Rick Passmore is attempting to do. You can see the foundations he's trying to build, trying to give the younger players people to talk to learn from. So I think in terms of looking forward to next season, even it's looking good. But yeah, I think they just, like you say, I can't see them going down. Remember, it's a playoff as well. If you come to 12th, you play off the third team, the third best team in the WSL2. So that's almost a bit of a sigh of relief. And I think that's been done to help the WSL grow a little bit more, help the WSL2 get a bit more consistency in terms of the up and down between the two leagues. So it's looking good. It's looking exciting. Let's wrap up then, because you can only talk about relegation so much, I think, and I want to keep it light for the next month before we have to actually tackle the problem. But thank you very much to everyone that has contributed, particularly Matt. Thank you, Andy. And thank you, of course, Steph, for coming on and albeit a last minute stand-in, but you've been awesome. So thank you.
No, thank you. And genuinely love what you're doing for the women's game and Leicester women, but genuinely I do mean it when I say that I've got a soft spot for Leicester, and I have every faith that you'll stay right where you are.
I do too. I'm predicting an emphatic 2-0 win for Leicester against Liverpool a month in advance. I'm ready. I know it. I feel it in my bones. For the rest of for Fox's Sake fans, we're going to have a little break in the show until the next few games, the next few fixtures. But you can catch me on BBC Radio Leicester in the coming weeks. That will be out on the socials. I'll be joining Zoe McGrady on her sports show. So yeah, all the details will be posted. And once again, head on over to www.forfoxsake.news, subscribe for the price of a pint a month, and you can get access to lots of exclusive content, particularly on Leicester City women. So thank you again. Thank you to the viewers, and we will see you next time.